God, it's Friday. Welcome to Business Morning on Channels Television. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Well, let's start as usual with what's going on in the oil space. Prices stabilized today and we're on track for their biggest weekly drop since November after seesawing on fears of escalating bans on Russian oil versus efforts to bring more supply to the market from other major producers. Brent crude futures inched down 16 cents to $109.17 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures was up 2 cents to $106.04 a barrel. That's following yesterday's 2.5% decline. Prices eased this week after it became clear that the European Union, heavily reliant on Russian energy, would not join the United States and Britain in banning Russian oil. Russia, the world's second largest crude exporter behind Saudi Arabia, exports about 3 million barrels a day of crude to Europe's OECD countries. In the near term, supply gaps are likely to be filled by extra output from OPEC members. And in Nigeria, headline inflation rate is expected to decline further for a second consecutive month this year from 15.6 to 15.57%. That's according to the forecast of financial derivatives company. However, the projection, which follows a survey of commodity markets in Lagos and some parts of the country, expects core inflation to increase to 13.98%, largely because of the impact of the Russian invasion, which has pushed price of petrol products as well as commodities such as wheat and corn. Meanwhile, the National Bureau of Statistics is set to release the country's February inflation reports next week, Tuesday. And away from that, operators and regulatory authorities in Nigeria's free zones have resolved to encourage synergy to promote the country's economic development. The initiative, which is the first of its kind, aims to make Nigerian goods more competitive, especially with the opening of the African Free Trade Market. The Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, the minister there, Mr. Adeni Adebayo, speaking with NEBSA MD, Professor Adeshuba, believes the forum provides for better understanding among stakeholders.
With regard to the validity period of the licenses, I understand that that is a major problem. So I have directed that the validity period of the licenses should be for 5 years. However, returns should be made every year. So validity period of 5 years, returns every year.
You have to understand that for us to be competitive, we have to attract quality investors here who are also assured that they have some respite from different kinds of restrictions, and there's a lot of promoting their interests, and that's why we've supported this initiative, and it's going to be sustained. It's going to be an ongoing process.
Well, moving on now, we continue our conversation, which we started on Wednesday with the West African Science Service Center on Climate Change and Adapted Land Use, that's WASCAL. Today, we will, among other issues, focus on MIGRAWARE, which is a multinational research by a consortium sponsored by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research in Germany. MIGRAWARE project is to deliver an integrative assessment framework for the processes, drivers, and factors of rural-urban cross-border migration in West Africa, and also to detect the typical pathways and histories of migration that could include moving from poor hinterlands to urban conglomerations and other places, so that governance instrument can be tailored for local, national, and interregional level production and development. Well, we have joining us since Wednesday now, joining us once again today from our Abuja studio, Professor Apollonia Ogimame, Director of WASCAL Climate Change and Human Habitat at the Federal University of Technology, Minna, Niger State. She's joining us once again from our Abuja studio. But also joining her today for that conversation is the scientific coordinator of MIGRAWARE. He is in Ghana, is representing the overall coordinator of the project, who is in Germany. He is Justice Income. He joins us from Cape Town in Ghana. Or Cape Coast in Ghana, I beg your pardon. Good to have you, Mr. Income, and Prof, once again. First of all, let's start with you, Prof, since we are very familiar with you. We started with you on Wednesday. Help us to understand, that's Prof now in Abuja, help us to understand the connection between WASCAL, you talked to us about WASCAL on Wednesday, and MIGRAWARE. What's the common ground here?
Thank you very much for that question, Ini. WASCAL, in making itself relevant in the sub-region, decided to work with stakeholders in the sub-region to identify research gaps in climate change and various thematic foci. And to do that, it worked with the WASCAL centers in the 11 West African countries. WASCAL centers organized national stakeholders workshop with stakeholders within their countries. For instance, in Nigeria, the two WASCAL programs, Federal University of Technology, Mina, and the Federal University of Technology, Akure, joined forces and organized about 5 years ago a national stakeholders workshop that identified gaps in research related to climate change in Nigeria. The same thing occurred in the other 10 West African countries. So, at regional level, WASCAL called a meeting of all these stakeholders and synthesized the results of the gaps identified into what we call a West African research plan. In 2017, this West African research plan was advertised. Components in it were advertised so that institutions in Germany and West Africa can collaborate to conduct research. And that was how MIGRAWARE was born, because a consortium of institutions comprising institutions in Germany, 2 universities and others, University of Julius Maximilian University in Würzburg, and then Martin Luther University in Halle, led others to work with West African partners. In Ghana, for instance, University of Cape Coast led them. In Burkina Faso, University of Nazibon led the way, while in Nigeria, Federal University of Technology, Mina, is working with Geography Department of the same university in MIGRAWARE. So that is the relationship between WASCAL and MIGRAWARE. WASCAL is being sponsored by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research, and the same ministry is sponsoring or funding the research being conducted under West African research plan. So the funding for the research comes to all the partners through WASCAL.
Okay.
So that's the relationship between WASCAL and MIGRAWARE.
All right, Mr. Income. So we know that when it comes to the issue of migration across West Africa, it's not a new topic. And yet we have this approach, the MIGRAWARE approach. What makes this approach different? What's outstanding about it?
Again, thanks for the opportunity to have this conversation with you. And as I said, I think Professor Aplone already did mention a lot about the origination of MIGRAWARE and its relationship with WASCAL. So indeed, your question is right. Here too, we've had opportunities where we consider migration really just by mere terms of the push and pull factors, right? People wanting to move from one location to the other, either to secure socioeconomic benefits or educational, other related factors. But I think that the new thing that we are bringing on MIGRAWARE is to look at the environmental twist of the determining factors and also the drivers that forces people to migrate from one area to the other.
And I see.
And then also try to sort of like introduce new technologies through the use of remote sensing and GIS as well as also through the use of this new modern way of connecting with people through, mobile telecommunication, or even mobile apps like Twitter and Facebook and other stuff, as a main source of having to connect and also inform people about the possibilities of moving from one location to the other. And then, most interestingly, the twist of having a new concept we call citizen science approach, in having to understand how that communal relationship and interrelationship inform people or causes people to move from one area to the other. And I think that's the beauty of it. I mean, we've had several, migration projects that either focus on modeling climate change or modeling other factors, but not really hardcore environmental drivers that either forces people to move, that most government and most scientific communities haven't even really thought that much about. So I think that's the new twist of what we are doing currently with MIGRAWARE.
And Prof, I understand that there's an innovation in training and education of future climate change scientists in West Africa, and this is the 10th year of its existence. Can you tell us a bit more about this education and training that you're doing?
Well, WASCAL, you very articulately presented yesterday. It focuses on using state-of-the-art technologies to train qualified West African youths selected from different countries, the 11 countries involved in WASCAL. Now, MIGRAWARE is going to lead to another area of interest in the program in Mina, Imperial University of Technology, Mina, because this time around, the research output from MIGRAWARE will be embedded in the curriculum of training, so that the area of climate change impact on migration is brought to the fore. They will be trained as future decision makers in the knowledge and skills that we have practiced through the research we are going to conduct in MIGRAWARE. And in addition to that, capacity of some young West Africans within the project are also being developed. There are PhD students attached to MIGRAWARE, and they are being trained in the processes that the research would undertake, so that in future they can work with other research scientists to develop further the MIGRAWARE software. I forgot to mention here that MIGRAWARE itself is an acronym derived from the title of the research, but it is actually a library-based software that can be developed continuously until we achieve the aim of being able to utilize that software not only to map, but to monitor as well as predict future migration trends for governments in West Africa. Thank you.
Yeah, so since we're talking of West Africa, Mr. Income, apart from Nigeria and what the prof has explained, what's going on in the Federal University in Mina there, what's going on in Ghana about, also embedding the output of this research into curriculum and getting, the younger people to get into it at an early stage, so that by the time they become adults and used to the community, they can, spread the message and act it out also.
Okay, thank you for the question. I think Professor Apollonia did, hit the nail right on the head. We have a similar construction also for the University of Cape Coast. We do have students who are currently also going through training, like she mentioned, in making them more competent in having to understand the sort of library that MIGRAWARE, open source library that MIGRAWARE is bringing up, and then also continuously improve on the systems and the processes that are within that library. So we have, I think we have 3 PhD students, and then aside that, we also do have professors and other research assistants from within that university who are equally contributing to that process. So it's more like improving the competence across the scale of key West African countries who happen to be either the harbor of migrants or also sometimes the origin of migrants as well. So yeah, it's cut across both countries, and the similar fashion is also happening in Burkina Faso. University of Naziboni, where we have other scientists and PhD students being trained on the same pedigree. So yeah.
And what do the countries, that host these universities in Nigeria, in Burkina Faso, as you've mentioned, and in Ghana, what do they stand to gain from the output of this, outcome of this project? What difference will it make, really?
So really, that's a good question. I think mostly it's the sort of thing that we have to always take seriously as a project. I think the key thing here is having to provide some inputs for policy consideration. As it is, every country, has a national migration policy. What we normally do miss in this migration policy is a focus or priority areas where targeted responses or targeted support need or ought to go to. So what we seek to do on MIGRAWARE is, after we are done with all the research, all the processes, having to understand what key drivers and factors really are there, the hotspots of these key drivers and factors, actually, as Professor Apollonia mentioned, these are going to be mapped, and after we map these, we put them in a document that will then be provided to the different ministries in charge of migration as a substantive contribution on areas that needs prioritization. Are these areas with low agricultural productivity? That could be a key priority. Are these areas with low educational infrastructure? That could be a key priority. Are these areas that have massive outflows of competent or productive young Africans or young Ghanaians or Nigerians or Burkinabés? Then these could be key targeted priorities that need consideration in the holistic national migration policy framework. So that's the direction that we are going with the general outcome of the project.
And hopefully the government of those countries will adopt it, and make it part of
hopefully.
their policy. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Prof, starting a thing is one thing, but the truth is, if we really want to make it impactful, there has to be a way to sustain it. So what's the plan to sustain, this critical role of WASCAL in West Africa, maybe in the next 10 years, 20 years, to get the optimum impact that you seek to achieve with the project?
Okay. First, the results of MIGRAWARE will be tested in the Federal University of Technology, Mina, the center of the WASCAL Center, the Climate Change and Human Habitat. Because when you talk about human habitat, it involves movement of people from one location to the other, migration. So we'll test it there, then export it with the cooperation of other WASCAL programs across West Africa. We'll export it to them. In other words, they have the opportunity to also embed it in their curriculum, in their various universities. Outside that, there will be participation in conferences that are related to climate change, where the results will be, presented. And in addition to that, there is a whole lot of stakeholder engagement during the procedure, during the research. So we will still engage these stakeholders, whether they are in commercial area, whether in government, in research institutes. We'll still engage them when the results come out, so that gradually the research results will be sustained. Of course, there is the issue of funding it, but I believe that by the time the outcome are seen to be very useful to the various countries, we will not have to look for how to fund this stakeholder engagement. But we intend to fully test it, not only in Nigeria, across West Africa, and we intend to engage local stakeholders stakeholders in the academia, so on and so forth. And that's how we intend to sustain the program.
All right.
But of course, visibility will be created in the process.
All right, Professor Apollonia Ohimame, Director of WASCAL, Climate Change and Human Habitat at the Federal University of Technology, Mina, Niger State, and also Mr. Justice Income, Scientific Coordinator of MIGRAWARE, joining us there from Cape Coast, Ghana. Thank you so much for your thoughts. And we do wish you the best. We're waiting for, you know, embedding that into the curriculum so that we will feel the lasting impact, you know, in our different countries. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I must say, Ini,
Yes, please.
with this program, we have actually launched MIGRAWARE in Nigeria.
Okay.
So from now onwards,
we look forward to MIGRAWARE projects and MIGRAWARE impact. All right, thank you so much, Prof. So we'll take a break now. And remember that celebration of women we're doing all through this week? Well, we'll do that concluding part on Business Morning right after this break. Just join us again. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. Yeah, welcome back. Well, the story of a lawyer turned beauty entrepreneur, the pioneer of the bridal makeup profession in Nigeria, begs the question, how many people discover their talent early enough to groom it for economic development? We have Tara Feladrotoye, the Chief Executive Officer of House of Tara. She's here to take us into that conversation and tell us her story. Hi, Mrs. Feladrotoye. Good morning.
Good morning, and it's lovely to be here with you. And
good to have you.
International Women's Month.
I really do wish you the same. Good to have you on the show. So with so much call for gender equality, no, you know, I'm really tempted to ask, you are a lawyer, but we know you as a beauty entrepreneur. Do you ever meet, do they meet at any point?
Well, in a sense, obviously, as we've grown as a business and grown across the country and the continent, having multiple locations, having multiple relationships, there's always agreements, right, that you need to sign, you need to read, that in that sense. And I think just going into university and going through a career, going through that process, you know, develops you even to be able to run a business. So in a lot of ways, yes, it does. I think basically as the education itself makes a world of difference.
But if you knew what you know now, would you still study law?
No, I wouldn't have. I would have studied business. I would have studied business management because I think that with every talent, it's so important that you know the business, the science of the business of it. It's as important as having the skill. And I remember starting as a bridal makeup artist, but today running multiple retail stores, running a distribution network. You need people. You need to develop talents within the organization. You need to build structure. You need to think about marketing and innovation and visibility. And these are the things that I wish I had the opportunity of being educated in. And this might charge a lot of people who have talent and in the creative industry. Please think about the business end of it.
Now, with so much call and discussion, conversations about gender equality over the years, would you say it is easier now for people to discover and groom their talent, you know, so people don't end up just going to school to get a first degree when they can actually find out their talent and groom it even while in university? Is it easier now? Is it happening more now?
It's definitely happening more because of role modeling. You know, we're seeing people like T.Y. Bello, who went into university to study economics and now is a photographer and a musician and very successful at it. You have your Banker Mishida, who also went into university to study something else and then has become a renowned makeup artist, one of the leading makeup artists in the country and the continent, if I may say, right? You see myself, who studied law, and here it is, I'm a true businesswoman, right? And now parents are realizing that. And I mean, somebody still reached out to me the other day, sending me a message that their daughter is going off to Canada to go to university, but wants to be ahead of going to university, come into our makeup school. And we're seeing that change. One of the state governments, for example, is setting up an entire curriculum, right, that covers makeup artistry, preparing the children ahead of graduating from secondary school. And so we're beginning to see that change. And I'm very excited to see the growth that we're experiencing now.
So you would say that Nigeria is beginning to have a system that helps to discover the proper career path and the talents of individuals, both boys and girls, before they go into university. Because then I think we used to have like career counselors who are supposed to help us, you know, to discover.
Yes.
I don't think that path really worked.
It didn't, but you know, we're still seeing. I don't know how well we're doing with public schools, but my children are in private schools, and you know, this is still something that they're advised to do. You're almost mandated to have these conversations. But I'm seeing more children who want to go and study product design. And who are exploring their arts. Parents are more encouraging. It's not as the way we desire it to be, but we're seeing that difference. You know, people are not insisting that you must go and study medicine and study law as much as and we're seeing more parents who are leaving their children to play football. So that's changing. It's not the way it should be, but there's that evolution that's taking place. We still have a lot of work to do, but the evolution is taking place.
Yeah, and parents have a major role, because it seems the parents are the one who would discover and notice some of those little things, you know, in the child before they know where to push or which direction to push the child to.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the role of parenting. You know, I was having a conversation earlier where I was talking about how important it is to identify the talent and ensure that the child has a passion for that talent. But also important is the viability of that talent. So you may have a talent, you may be good at it, you may be passionate, but it may not be viable. And I think sitting down with the children and having that discussion is very important. But there is nothing as superb as living a life where you're exploring your business or exploring what you're exploring with the God-given talents that you have. It's much, much easier for you to succeed because you're playing to win, because you have the skill set to win.
Yeah, and you know, many years ago, a lot of people would not think that a makeup business would be a multi-million naira or multi-million dollars business, you know. So I wonder what else is left to be discovered. I know these days the ICT everyone seems to be going that way, but I wonder what else is hidden, you know, that can be squeezed out that would tomorrow become a major boom in the business area.
For beauty, I mean, we're embracing technology, we're embracing artificial intelligence now. Beauty is something that has been here even before ICT and would be here after. Women always want to look beautiful. Even men are beginning to embrace grooming at different levels, having skincare products that they're using. We're launching our own skincare products as well for men. We are beginning to see that happen, and it's being embraced as a country, as you know, as a generation. That is something exciting that I'm seeing. So I would say, you know, we keep at it, and we just keep pushing the beauty industry. I didn't realize that it would be what it is today, but it's just phenomenal to see. Actresses and actors, musicians who are moving into the beauty industry. It's interesting to see lawyers who are moving into the beauty industry, and it's just the boom, right? And I think it's because beauty is something, you know, women can't do with that, and it will continue to grow and thrive.
Yeah, so we're celebrating women, and we do hope that the attention that we are getting as women doesn't end in the month of March, or doesn't end, you know, when we're done celebrating that. But looking at the other side, are women ready for this gender equality that we are clamoring for?
I think so. I think women are ready. I think if you ask me, women have been over ready. You know, women are investing a lot in personal development. If you go to any school, any program, there are generally more women. Any courses, when I host courses on my structure classes, there are more women. People who are coaches are coaching more women, and so women are over prepared, and you know, I think they're overcompensating. And so if you ask me if women are ready, I'll say women are ready. Is the society ready? I'm not too sure that the society is ready. I mean, if you think about the bill that was that was passed the other day and that was rejected by the House, you would know that Nigeria is still, a long way ahead, and there's still work to be done. We're still a patriarchal society. I recently read a book, Women in Leadership, written by Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala and the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, and the emphasis, Prime Minister of Australia, and the emphasis was around the sort of biases that women experience, and they covered about 10 different women, from Hillary Clinton to Ngozi herself, and to read, and I think every father who has daughters must read that book, and basically the stories of biases that women experience. I have sons, and I discuss these things with them. We still have a long way to go in terms of the biases, but I think women are over-prepared. They're building networks. There is a conference at the end of this month, Women's International Conference, just for African women in Dubai, and it's, over 300 women are gathering. So there's constant attention in terms of development for women, and I think women are ready. It's a society that needs to get ready. Mothers need to prepare their sons better for the difference that they're going to experience.
Yeah, and then research has shown that women control or own about 43% of micro, small, and medium enterprises in Nigeria. But there's the argument that most of them are actually the micro level. They hardly grow to the next level. I guess that's one of the society, one of the barriers that the society has put. When you talk of funding, when you talk of access to loan, and even landed property and issues like that.
It is a true, real issue, but there are programs that have been designed to help that. Women are still around, we're still not doing enough to grow beyond the micro level, right? We're not ambitious, and generally not as ambitious as men. And of course, there's access to funding. Women have to be over-prepared for everything, right? And so sometimes we don't have access to these things. But I still recall the Lagos Employment Trust Fund pushing and creating a program. And really the program was to see, how do we ensure that the micro businesses become more, we begin to see more of them become small scale, and then to see more of them become medium scale. And they shared the statistics with me for Lagos State, for example, and I could see the intentionality in designing that program to see how we can get more women who are at the micro level to grow to become small, and then move to small to become medium. But it's also the society, the economy, the country that we're in. There's not enough the government is doing to ensure that businesses thrive. We're always, it seems like we're always fighting so much. There's so much more to fight for. And that can be a limitation as well. So sometimes even with the statistics, you see some medium scale businesses who then eventually drop off to become small scale businesses because of inflation and all the issues that we have to address as Nigerian entrepreneurs. So that's a big challenge. However, there's still hope, and I'm seeing more women who are beginning to scale up beyond micro scale and small scale.
So for you, being a woman, and since you're in the beauty industry, was it easier for you to move your business, from one level to the other, to the medium, to, as big as you are today? Was it easier for you?
Definitely not easier. I remember, I always tell the story of the first time I wanted to get a bank loan, and the MD of the bank asked me if I could ask my husband for collateral, right? And there's that general assumption. And I said, with all due respect, sir, if my husband came to you for a loan, would you ask him to ask me for a collateral? And he immediately realized his folly. But these are some of the issues that women face. I don't think it was easier for me. And sometimes even in terms of employing men, right? Beauty is not it's not a reserve for women. We still have finance as a department. We have supply chain, logistics. And there are many times that internal audit, that men need to be recruited. And sometimes, because we're such a patriarchal society, men sometimes find it difficult to work for female entrepreneurs. And that's some of the challenges that I've experienced as an entrepreneur. However, we keep pushing. There's a lot of hope ahead, and we stay focused on building.
So just before we let you go, there's this work-life balance, life-work balance, which the question always comes to women because, we're very sentimentally attached to the domestic front, and then we have to balance that with the competition and, everything we have to face in the corporate world. Do we have a formula that makes it easier now?
There's no formula, and at every point in time you have to juggle. Sometimes they say there's really no balance. but it's really a process of juggling. Sometimes, the children become the focus because a child needs that attention. Sometimes the business needs that focus for a season as well. And we just keep juggling. And I don't know, there's a formula, and I think with each person, you have to find what works for you. For me, it's a supportive spouse, it's a support staff, but not everybody has the privilege of having support staff to make that happen. But it's tough, very, very tough for women, very, very tough. And I would like to crave everyone's indulgence to put this in perspective. That's tough for women, and let us make it easier for women when we are dealing with them. I have young moms who work in the company today, and there's so much traffic, right? And they're thinking about how to drop off the child at a daycare. My children are much older now. My first is 20, but I remember those days, and sometimes I wonder, what can we do as business owners, as organizations, to make it easier for women? That's how we're designed. That's how we were created. But let's put that in perspective and know that women's priorities are many. Their husband's a priority, their children, their business or their work is a priority. Let's make it easier for women. Let's make it easier for women.
Well, that's one message of breaking the bias as we celebrate women this year. Thank you so much, Tara Feladrotoye, the Chief Executive Officer of House of Tara. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and your insights with us.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, Ini, for having me.
Great to have you. Well, that's it. We did promise that we will celebrate women for this week on Business Morning. The celebration continues, but not on Business Morning anymore. But it's been a great one. But we have another woman now as we head to the markets. We're everywhere. We're dominating. But with respect to the men, of course. Will, I believe that's your stance too.
Yes, definitely. Good morning, Ini. You see, the market is probably responding to women because, there was a prediction that the market was going to trend.
And there was nothing to push the market to the bullish side, and then
but it just flipped. It just went
the
to the green. Just the women. We have this pull, we have this power to make things work when things seem like they're not going to work. So bullish sentiments persisted in the domestic market, and we had Abdul Rashid earlier saying that we're going to have weak trading. We're going to have some bearish trading, but that projection did not pan out, but we don't know what's going to happen in today's trading session. But equities, the interest in MTN Nigeria yesterday bolstered the market gain. The company hinted on higher dividend payout, and probably that was what, pushed investors, that spiked investors' interest for that stock. And this led the all-share index close at 0.16%, and it's remaining at 47,363.98 points. Now, month-to-date loss has moderated to about 0.1% now, so we're going to move to the positive territory very soon. Now, the year-to-date gain has increased to 10.9%. We're still at the 10% level. That's really great for the market. Now, total volume traded decreased by 22.2% yesterday to 261.55 million units. Valued at 4.47 billion naira and exchanged in 4,672 deals. Before we're going to go, we'll have an analyst going to tell us what's really happening in the equities space, especially now we're moving into the new week. Now, on the sectors, we have the banking, industrial, insurance, and oil and gas counters there. All posted gains yesterday, except for the consumer goods index, which was 0.56% down. And now on the banking index, we had Access Bank really doing their thing there. And the industrial goods closed flat, though I said the post again, but it was really flat yesterday, 0.0%. We're hoping that it's not going to move to that level. But so now, the NASD index closed positive as well, but we're seeing a 0.05 uptick there, rebounding from the negative trend it had yesterday. Now we're going to flip to the fixed income market where we have, this was still pretty much quiet trading for investors, especially with the OMO auction and the NTB auction, which we had earlier this week. But the OMO auction yesterday, we saw, witness of repurchasing along the long end of the curve for, some bonds, and mostly rates remained unchanged. But we have Ajibola Aero Phillips to tell us what is happening there. Good morning, Ajibola.
Morning. Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. So now, attention was focused on the the OMO auction yesterday, and we had NTB earlier this week. Now, tell us what's really happening in the market, especially with the NTB auction. Tell us, is there any difference from what you have observed in the last auction?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, there was an NTB auction, like you rightly said earlier this week. I think the biggest thing that came out of that, even though there was a drop in yields at the long end from from the previous auction of 4.2 to 4.1, we've seen that there's actually a slow in terms of the previous month. If you see how much of a drop that we have when you compare it with this last auction, we said that the rates did not dip that much as compared to the previous auction that we've seen. So that has sent some ripples across the market, thinking, okay, maybe we are not going as low as we thought that we were going to go. Maybe it's now time for yields to go back up. So that has crept up in the in the market throughout the week. Not much change with respect to OMO. Stoppage was maintained, but all of the action is still in the NTB, as that gives a better direction because not much has been happening. So what we've seen, and that has also crept into the bonds market. Bonds market also, we've seen that the yields have begun to trend up. Also, that was largely driven again by an increase in yields at the savings bond, the FGN savings bond. We saw that the yields moved from about 7.2 and 8.2 to about 9.74 and 10.74. So that has sent a bit of slow drop in yield to the market, and market participants and investors are watching that space, thinking, okay, maybe now there's going to be a reversal in terms of the yields, and then we've seen that yields have begun to trend up generally across the market. Also, liquidity has dried up. I think the last time I was on the show, I talked about how much liquidity that was in the system at the time, FAC, homo maturities, bond maturities, and whatnot. But that has slowed down right now. So we've seen that all of that combined together, we've seen that yields have begun to inch up slowly.
Okay, so you spoke about yields going up. Given the elevated yields we've seen in the market now, do you think investors are going to be cherry picking? They're going to be, looking at specific bonds? What's going to be spiking their interest right now?
Absolutely. And then I think people are kind of going to be cautious because you want to see how high this is going to go and how long this is going to, go. You don't want to go in right now and then yields continue to go up. So there's going to be a bit of cautiousness. And what we've seen in the last week or, over this week has been a bit of sell-off generally, sensing that there's a reversal in terms of yields, with yields going up. So there's been a bit of sell-off in the market generally this week, and that might continue into the next week as well.
Okay, so next week we are projecting that this is what we're going to see. Is there anything specific about next week that investors should look out for?
Not a whole lot. I think the biggest one is probably the week after that, where we're going to see there's going to be a bond auction. We want to see what's going to happen, what the DMO is going to do with that, based on what had happened at the savings bond auction that happened yesterday or the day before yesterday. I'm not sure we specified. So, watch this space with respect to that. Whether we're going to get a full sense of direction with respect to yields when the bond auction comes around in 2 weeks.
Thank you so much, Ajibola Aero Phillips, Head FX Trading at FBN Quest Merchant Bank. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you.
So, Ini, that's what we have for the markets. As Ajibola rightly said, investors are going to be cautious, especially today, next week, with elevated yields in the market. We're just going to see where market direction is going to take us.
Yeah, we'll certainly watch this space, as Ajibola said there. We'll certainly watch it. Thank you so much, Will. Thanks a lot for that. So we'll take a break now. When we come back from the break, we'll head to another market. Stay with us. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. You're welcome back. Well, let's head to the other market now. That's the crypto market. Ladi, I hope today is not a bloody Friday as usual. Let me hold my breath and
we're used to bloody Fridays,
I don't want to get used to it.
It's kind of mixed. It's kind of mixed, but
okay.
The
That's
sentiment,
manageable.
It's manageable. Mixed. We'll take mixed today. Well, but the sentiment in the market is still fear. Better than extreme fear. It was extreme fear yesterday, but today we're having 22 points of 100, showing the fear greed index for the crypto market. Market cap, $1.75 trillion. That is pulled back by 0.14% this morning. It's volume traded in the total crypto space. That's Bitcoin plus all of the other altcoins, $82.95 billion this morning. Bitcoin dominance, 42.44%. And we see the price of Bitcoin did go as high as 42,000 on Wednesday with other global markets, but we're having a pullback It's lost that 40,000 mark. It fell as low as 38,000, but recovered 39,000 this morning. It's volume traded $27.93 billion in Bitcoin. And we see Ethereum there, $2,600. It's holding up, trying to stay above that 2,500 point. It's just up marginally by 0.57%. Volume traded in Ethereum, $11.75 billion. And we see the top alts by market cap. We see BNB there still hovering around that $300 mark, $374, trying to get back above $400, but it's down 0.78%. And we see Cardano at 80 cents. It's down 0.29%. And we see the only coin doing well on the top of the market cap is XRP. It's at 75 cents, up 1.56% this morning. And we see Solana there, $82.38, down about 0.21%. I don't know if we have Michael Nachi there. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Lenny. Happy
Friday. Great to have you, Michael. It's not so red, quite a mixed trading we're having today. Obviously, we see the crypto market having that correlation with the global markets, especially the tech heavy NASDAQ. How are you seeing the market today?
So far, so good. Mostly, the market is looking fairly weak in results in light of the results of the inflation data that came out. We saw some of the highest inflation data we've seen in 40 years. Month-over-month CPI coming in at 7.9. This hasn't factored in the inflationary effects that we have felt because of the war in Ukraine, causing things like wheat and other kind of commodities to go up. So the economy looks like we're heading into a period of stagflation. That is no economic growth, a rise in inflation, and also a rise in employment, but with no economic growth to show for it. So in times like this, you will see commodity prices go up, but you know, some don't do better than the others, especially ones that are more speculative, like Bitcoin, unfortunately.
Right, and talking about the U.S. executive order by Joe Biden, well, the crypto market took the content well. What did you make of the executive order?
Yeah, so this is the executive order that we've been expecting for weeks now, months now. We've known that Biden was going to be releasing some kind of order about crypto, but the thing that that made most traders happy was because the order didn't really say much. What it did say was that the U.S. needs to take a balanced approach towards innovation. That this is a segment of innovation that needs to be handled with care, so that the U.S. doesn't make any mistakes or doesn't lose out on what could become a very massive industry that allows cross-border payments with ease. So although it didn't say much, it left room for hope because they didn't, unlike the Trump administration, which was trying to force in last-minute rule changes like the FinCEN, you saw just a more balanced approach, them taking more caution towards regulating crypto, so that way mistakes aren't made, because this is financial innovation, and you need to really take your time and dial in all the key stakeholders so that no one gets left behind and we carry everyone along. Another important revelation from the document was that the U.S. needs to focus on a CBDC. Biden said it was of the most utmost urgency to get a CBDC up and running, because that could allow cross-border payments to happen quickly. And also, as well, they noted in the paper that having the CBDC would allow the U.S. to maintain its reserve currency. And so he charged them with basically making it the urgent matter. So at the same time, he did say, focus on the CBDC. So maybe he's missing the point about Bitcoin being the next global reserve currency of the world, some people were hoping. But at least he noted that this is an industry that needs financial regulation and needs sensible financial regulation because of the innovation it could bring. And also a CBDC could be necessary in order to maintain America's integrity as the #1 reserve currency in the world in light of the world events.
Right, and now the word stagflation is being thrown around globally, and there's been this argument about Bitcoin, being the right inflation hedge, but it's down 50% from its previous high. Michael, how does that play out?
Yeah, so I truly do believe Bitcoin is the currency to save us whenever we have what we have collapses. However, though, in the situation that we're heading into a macro headwinds are shifting. The Fed is committing what's called policy error. It's acting too late, and so what that would likely result in is you're going to have, they're too late in the business cycle to actually take any decent macroeconomic event to change any macroeconomic events. So you're going to have a liquidation type event like we had in March 2020. You can expect all global markets to flush. There's a reason why we're seeing commodity prices go up. It's usually what's called end of cycle movement. So you can expect some kind of massive drawdown in all global markets. The yield curve just inverted. So that usually means we're 6 to 12 months out from a recession. Last time the yield curve inverted was back in late 2019, right before the COVID pandemic. So we can expect a global flush out. But Bitcoin will come back up from the ashes just like it did in March of 2020. But we're due for impending recession in all markets.
Right. All right, Michael, we'll keep watching how Bitcoin performs this year. Thank you so much, Michael. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. And now, Innie, let's look at the top 5. Again, is there we see STX there topping that count is up 31.27%. We see Zcash privacy token there, $153 per token. It's up 12.50%. We see Rune there at $5.49. So we're seeing a couple of double-digit gains this morning. So some also giving good gains, but we see AR there, Arweave leading the top 5 losers. It's down about 12% this morning. We see Phantom there at $1.21, down 5.2%. So it's a mixed bag this morning. Well, the crypto market doesn't sleep. We still have Saturday. We still have Sunday. Only God knows what's going to happen on Monday.
Yeah, well, God, and then those people who move the strings, pull the strings.
Exactly, those whales.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much, Laddie. But do remember here on Channels Television that we do not sell, neither do we advertise cryptocurrency or securities. We're just here reporting the market. So don't let anyone tell you otherwise. We just report the market here at Channels Television. Right. Thank you so much for being a part of this week's episodes of Business Morning. It doesn't end here. We will continue next week, fresh episodes of Business Morning. But before then, at 1:30, there'll be Business Incorporated, where we'll give you updates from the world of business. I'm Innie John Mekwa. Enjoy your weekend.